Eternal darkness, there's just nothing. It's a vacuum, we're in space, but it's pre-time space. There's nothing happening.
There's nothing there, but we just see a little glimmer of light, just one spot of light that is very bright and blue.
And suddenly it starts to get closer and closer, and it's rushing at us.
It's getting closer to us, it's rushing to our faces, and it goes past us.
We realize this is the Big Bang, and suddenly we hear a voiceover.
We hear a voiceover of an American trying to do his best, like, voiceover. And he has a very strong echo, like, crying up to the
time. The scientific entity known as improvisational comedy. And then we see that shot fades to a shot of Earth with sun.
We see a shot of Earth, like, turning around, and the sun is shining on top of this Earth as we continue to hear this very young man
puzzled the universe's greatest minds. Tonight, however, and the shot transforms and fades again to DNA.
So we see a double helix of DNA in its B-type of strand, just turning around, like going like in the thing, and then
as the next line of voiceover comes, the title comes across the screen. This is In the Lab with Double XL.
And then we hear ding, 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 ding.
Lights go up.
Ding, 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 ding. We hear the song.
You realize we're in the theater, and we hear the song from the other speakers, and it's very recognizable. It's a
It's Lowrider by yeah, and then we see a man coming here, like he just turned all the lights on. He's a very American and Jewish looking man.
On this side, we see a really just like messy guy. He's wearing the best clothes he's ever owned in his life.
We see this guy, the other guy is dancing, and we see this guy. We see this guy with a very disappointed look in his face. He's just waiting to turn the music off.
The music is still going, but oh my God. He's just really fed up, and he's usually holding a phone, which would get to this next slide, and eventually hits the next slide, and welcome to In the Lab with Double XL.
This is our last In the Lab of the year, so it's, yeah. Tell that to the year that has 12 months.
And for those who are unaware, you're in our lab right now, but there's something a little different this time because you're actually not in our lab because you're looking at a screen right now. There's a screen in front of you.
Right here.
This is a video screen. We're in a movie, so you can see on the screen the lab equipment. We've got vials and tubes.
A bunch of ants just running around and an ant colony and.
But none of this is actually in the theater tonight.
No.
It's all on screen.
It's all on the screen, so we could do like a close-up of a beaker. And you would see the beaker, but then we cut to a wide shot and it's us.
Anything is possible. The screen is, pretty standard size, so imagine a pretty standard size screen. But it can curve out like some of these modern screens. It can change aspect ratios.
It can go into a cell phone, iPhone aspect ratio screen.
It can be 3D.
Yeah. So yeah.
But anyway, for anyone who's ever been to In the Lab, this is an improv show where we examine and experiment with different long-form improv structures.
Yeah, and we've done quite some of these that appear here. For example, you'll remember the Herald or the Deconstruction. But tonight is all about it is
It should be fairly obvious at this point.
About the movie. Yeah. So we also this is a video of the lab, and we also try to keep it a bit scientific. And the first thing you go to from a scientific standpoint is the linguistic definition.
I didn't know that. Is that really what you do the first thing? Well, here, that's what we do. So the definition definition of movie. C, motion.
So move, E, C, motion picture. That's actually the definition of movie.
Real definition.
So if we see the definition of motion
Motion picture. A series of pictures projected on a screen in rapid succession with objects shown in successive positions slightly changed so as to produce the optical effect of a continuous picture which the objects move. Wow. And so think of that tonight as you see a series of different images reproduced right in front of you.
Anyway. So yeah, so this is about is it such a weird collection? So yeah, so in movies, many things can happen. Unlike theater, like in movies you can have like very different perspectives of what you're seeing. Like for example, this you could never do in theater. So that's kind of like the magic of things we try to do when we try to represent a movie on stage. Try to put the camera in different perspectives and see the scene and whatever's going on from different points of view.
Yeah, with most improv shows, you're sort of using the theater as your space, that's all you have, and you're trying to create within the boundaries. But with a movie, you can go anywhere and do anything.
Yeah.
And the best part is that the actors then have to sort of try their best to recreate it. You can have complicated lighting techniques that you can try to do.
You can have like a very sophisticated musical score when everything is
Exactly.
going on.
And you're not going to just see improvisers tonight. You're going to actually see movie stars, people you know and love, acting out the movies that you're watching on screen tonight.
In fact, tonight I'm being played by Brad Pitt. This is not me. This is Brad Pitt, best representation of a Latin American fat guy with long hair.
And it's weird, we had to, the producers of this movie had to put in the fact that he has to explain that he's Brad Pitt playing Nacho because it wasn't believable.
He's such a great actor.
Anyway, to best demonstrate how this might look, we thought maybe we would show you an iconic scene that everyone knows and try to do our best to recreate the shots live in front of you.
So for this we will need Andrea and Chris that are going to help us demonstrate.
With our screen. Obviously, this would get really chaotic if we played a scene in real time, so we've slowed down this scene ever so slightly.
And we hope, I mean, we have like weird choices of films, but we hope you kind of recognize it and you
I think everyone will recognize this.
Yeah. Okay.
And this will look the lights. Oh no, don't hit the lights. No, don't hit the lights.
We slowly move. But in the background, we can see.
The shot is at dusk.
Cut to a reverse angle. Cut to a medium line. Cut to a close-up. Cut to a wide medium. Cut to a close-up. Reverse close-up. Reverse close-up. Reverse close-up. Reverse close-up.
Wide shot.
Over the shoulder shot.
Over the shoulder.
Reverse shot. Cut to a medium shot.
There's a light breeze. Cut to a wide.
We're slowly moving under there. Cut to a bird's eye. The camera slowly rotates. Cut to a low.
It hands up a little bit. The music swells. Close
We
up.
cut to a medium shot. The camera slowly rotates around the characters. We cut to an extended close-up.
Get close up. Your faces.
We cut to an extreme close-up.
Great!
What a beautiful movie moment. So I guess you can now see how you can try to recreate magic from in a movie way.
Yeah. Okay, so that was exhausting.
So
but
you'll,
now,
so you'll see a lot of this, us going crazy during the performance.
Need some water?
No, I'm fine. It's just emotional. So now we're going to do our set, and you know that in our set we sometimes try to demonstrate a bit of this philosophy of the improv form that we're trying to do, but mixed a bit with what we do. So we're going to do something that is kind of like a cinematic deconstruction.
deconstruction is the form Nacho and I usually perform. It was the first form we did for In the Lab, so it seems fitting to adapt it for our last show of 2017.
Yes. So this is not exactly the movie. The movie is what you will see at the end of the show.
Exactly.
But this is our take.
Great. And also, unlike some other introductions, we don't take a suggestion, but believe us, this is all fictional and not real. Made up.
It's not an adaptation of a book. It's just 12 cents,
Unbelievable.
right?
Now you got a good discount.
Yeah. Like, I would buy it for 5 cents. Just as a jar half filled with sugar. I'm not paying 12 cents for that, you know?
James, what the fuck are you talking about?
I don't know. Like, there's people doing their own, like, sales.
You're saying it actually costs that little?
A half-used jar of sugar? Well, I don't know. I'm not paying for a half-used jar of sugar. These people are crazy.
This is a crazy goddamn yard sale.
It's a fucking crazy goddamn yard sale. That's what I'm talking about, man.
Oh, when you said 15 cents, I thought you were referring to the discount.
No, 15 cents. They want to charge and a half. Like, who knows where this sugar has been? Huh?
You're getting way too worked up. Way too worked up.
You know, that's me. That's me. People try to steal me blind. You know, just like.
James, I hate to break it to you, but you're getting a hell of a deal. You know, sugar glasses, yeah, sure, they shouldn't cost that much.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But, come on, 15 cents. Whatever, are times that tough?
And I'm counting my pennies.
I know.
Yeah, you know this. I got a dog to feed.
I know.
It's hard when you got something that depends on you. You know?
I know. Oh, look, I'm a grandfather.
Yeah, but they are long gone, man. You don't need to take care of this anymore.
That's not true. I leave money to them. I give them money for gifts all the time.
Oh, Mr. Roberts, giving up free cash to his progeny. Huh? Look at that! Look at that! You're living in an old home and you're sending cash. Look at Mr. Robertson.
James, you are one mean son of a bitch.
Listen, I don't want.
I hate to say it, I'm your best friend in this goddamn nursing home.
I know, and my rummy buddy. My hard buddy.
But you know what I gotta say to you? It makes sense sometimes that you're alone. It makes sense.
And I'm the mean son of a bitch, huh?
Hey, that was not me, that was the truth. Truth is an entity outside of my own opinions. Objective facts. That's why you're alone.
Didn't know you were such a science-y kind of guy. You know?
I got lots of time to read.
Who cares about the fucking truth, huh? You know? You gotta care about your own opinions.
Someone just broke
Just like
a bunch of glasses. That's a
Bunch
shame.
of
8
glasses.
cents a piece.
Yeah.
Gone down the drain.
You know? It's okay, man.
Yeah, I don't mean.
I don't mean to disrespect. It's good that you have money. Yeah.
And who better than my future progeny?
Well, I think the home could use a couple of,
No,
you know?
my
There's a window there.
my family puts enough into it. I saved up so that they could not have to worry about me. I don't want to be burdened to my family. That's all I'm trying to say is that
Yeah,
you.
I get you. I get you. Yeah, maybe yeah. I should leave some money from when,
Now this is a beautiful little clock here.
huh?
It's a beautiful little clock here.
Do you know about clocks? I know nothing about clocks. I mean, it's pretty.
I know it tells time, which we ain't got a whole lot of.
That's true. Why would you need such a reminder then? How little we have left.
Well, I think maybe it's useful, gives you purpose.
We're such a believer in nature and
Well, I think that there are powers that exist in the natural world that are greater than human power. And I'm a firm believer in my vulnerability to it. And my smallness and my, you know, I don't have a lot that I can contribute. Not anymore.
money.
That's all I got. And it ain't a lot. It ain't a lot, James.
Well, buddy,
It ain't a lot.
but it is something. It is something. Just saying. Some people do need the money, you know. Just stay afloat. Just saying, it's something. You know.
These old magazines. Who needs these old magazines?
I don't know why we would look at our records. We don't even have a player at home. What am I gonna do? Just
Why wouldn't we have? Wouldn't it make sense for us to have a player at home?
right. We figure like old people in home should have their technology appropriate to their age.
Why are we using?
Right?
Why are we using an MP3?
Yeah. What the
None of
fuck
us-
is that?
None of us can figure it out. I'm gonna bring that up with Marshall when I see him next.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
that's a good point. Yeah.
Appropriate technology.
Yeah, appropriate technology to our generation.
I'm not saying we need to live in no vintage home,
I'm not saying that.
although it sometimes feels like it's stuck out of another time period.
Yeah, but it's with some weird jumps in technology. Like,
Like one of them fans that's a circle with a hole in the middle and there ain't nothing.
what's up with that?
What the hell is that?
I don't know.
What witchcraft is that made from? And I believe in the natural world. I understand the mechanics of fans.
Yeah, I don't understand showers anymore. Which way's hot? Which way's cold? I don't know. We used to have the two things, you know? Hot, cold. Deal with it.
Dude, it's still pretty clearly labeled.
I don't know, man. It's just like, I feel like a pilot. You just grab this one thing and you're just like, you know? Just gotta control it somewhere. I feel like I'm gonna burn down one day.
Get something good for my grandkids.
Earth, wind, and fire. access it because we don't understand the technology.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
I'm glad you calmed down a little bit.
Oh, why was I ranted about?
We cut to a control room with a bunch of security monitors everywhere. There's just monitors everywhere, different camera angles, of different vantage points around the city, and there's just people milling about and all the different things. Below the panel, we see a control panel. We see 2 chairs. We see 2 security guards sitting and monitoring the control panel. They're both dressed in all black and like very militant looking. There's clearly just banal stuff happening on the screens. Nothing concerning. Yeah, any minute now.
I feel like something's gonna happen.
Something I'm gonna freak out about and save the day. Any minute now. Whoa!
Look at that kid!
Jaywalker! Ooh.
Jaywalking!
You know.
Stop with that!
We used to not jaywalk in my time.
That's a crime. Huh?
That's a good crime.
That's a good time.
It's a good crime to get all angry about over nothing. Oh boy. The calm before the storm.
Yeah.
Where's it gonna be next? It'll be First Street? Oh no.
Oh, I can feel it coming. It's definitely coming.
Oh!
Oh!
Yeah,
What
there
you
it
see?
is. Oh, there's a minor fender bender, someone parking, and they ain't gonna leave a note. They ain't
Oh no!
Oh!
Oh no!
That-
That's a crime!
That makes me angry.
Oh,
yeah.
that wouldn't have happened in my time.
No, not
Straight to jail. It's good that we're freaking out about things that mean something.
important. We don't have the legal standpoint to intervene, but
No, not even in this
but
mundane thing.
our anger is justified.
It's a slow day.
It's a slow day every day.
We cut to a science lab, like people like trying to figure out the world. Like to see a man that is like very confident about every move he makes. He is even able to like predict the laws of physics and do things exactly the way that he wants them to.
As you see, this spins perfectly on its cylindrical axis.
Well, of course, it must be following Maxwell's equation of like spin.
Well, naturally, these are the kinds of things that we just must accept, and these are the natural laws we all know.
Well, there are not any other laws there, and they are actually predicting our behavior, like you and me being here analyzing nature. Isn't that a paradox? Even that laughter seemed pretty meditated.
Well, laughter is only a reaction to an emotional stimuli, and I think that we provided ourselves with a mighty fine one.
Well, that is. I completely agree with you. Couldn't have said it better.
Well, actually, there is a possibility that I could have said it better. You see, there are many ways any conversation can go, many triggers and patterns that we can react to and contribute to, and I probably could have contributed a better pattern.
Yes, we could be in a split universe situation in which this situation goes completely another way. But that cylinder would spin according to Maxwell's equation in that universe as
Yes,
well.
Maxwell's equation is universal.
Yes, that's a great way of putting it. Universal.
That was a great way of setting me up for it.
Well, but that was a great compliment on the way I set you up.
The natural laws of conversation. A cat calendar.
What?
A cat calendar.
you go. How much?
Well, I'll be. That's quite an expensive cat calendar.
How much?
$4 for this thing?
Ooh.
What in God's name is so special about this cat calendar?
It's also probably old. Right? We even sell calendars from the current year, right? So useless.
It is.
Useless garbage.
No, it's beautiful. I think it shows something special about life. I think it shows how even humans can appreciate the non-human behavior of a different species, yet reflect it through the art of photography.
What are you talking about?
Oh, sorry, you know me. I can go off on these things for a long time. But I think my niece will love it.
Yeah. It's funny what cats do. I agree with you with that. You don't have to put in all these fancy words, you know? Just saying. I'm not making something out of nothing here. Okay?
I'm not saying you are, James.
Wait. Good. They're doing records again, these kids. The kids, they're doing records again.
Oh, they're coming back?
Yeah,
Oh, it's a trend.
well, yeah, that's what you call it.
Yeah, it's a popular trend.
Yeah,
The habits, you know, these things come back around. The habits of,
yeah, I call it temporal appropriation.
well, it is a very pure form of music.
Really is. But why don't let us enjoy it? Like, our way, right? That's our way. They can take all their MP3s. We can, like, keep our records, you know?
Yeah. We cut to the exterior of a strip mall in the middle of America. We see there's a bunch of little shops like Subway, McDonald's, but there's one huge shop right in the middle. Just across things, it's Millennial Best Buy. And then we go into Millennial Best Buy and we see it's just filled with all the newest stuff. There's nothing old in it at all. Everything is the newest model of everything. We zoom in on one counter. We see a young guy who's staring at it in disbelief. He's looking at the section, what used to be the CD section. Can I help you today?
Wowee! Where's the CD section?
Millennial Best Buy, we don't have CDs.
Excuse me?
It's not generationally appropriate.
Sure, but I have a very large CD collection and I want to...
You should get rid of it. You don't look like you're the proper age for that.
But it's a great way of holding music.
Oh, well, look.
Because it has also like an emotional value. You can keep it, it's easy to store.
Yeah, but you can have access to every song ever at the touch of a finger.
We see that in the background, everybody's dancing to the sound of the song.
Nice choice, man!
Yeah, good call! Yeah. You show that millennial denial.
See?
Yeah, but like, what if I don't know which song I want to play? I just want to grab the first CD I have and just like...
Well, there's playlists that are sent to you every single day.
Okay, listen, man. Like, I just want to have my CDs. You know, like, could you have just a section for people that still want to get their CDs?
Oh, we do have a section, but unfortunately, as the CDs kind of proceed through the room, they're put through an incinerator.
We got to the incinerator room. Like, there's a bunch of, we see like a bunch of people that are millennials but think they're Generation X. They're all smoking by the incinerator room. They do make a great sound.
All they're good for. We see someone enters from the room. He's wearing a black shirt that says Vape Town. Hey, you two. Don't you know that cigarettes aren't part of your generation? Let me see the two guys. Whoa. We close up on the two guys. Whoa. And then the vape guy. Have a nice day.
We cut to a zoo. We see a bunch of like kids just staring at animals like across the. I think he's saying he needs water.
How could you have possibly done that?
It's just animal language. I get it.
Okay, the elephant just went. Didn't say anything specific. There's no such thing as animal language.
Have you seen Dr. Doolittle? True story. Have you heard of a guy named Noah?
Is that, well,
That's the president. That's already 2 people that spoke to animals.
those are both, I don't want to offend you because I know you're very religious, but
I'm a great believer in movies.
those are just movies. They're not based on real life.
Excuse me.
Those are just movies. Those people don't actually understand how to speak to animals, but that's not even the point.
Do you really understand that movies are a way of transmitting a message? Like selling a story and waking people up to facts?
No, I think they're pure entertainment.
Well, aren't facts an entertaining thing? That's why we have the expression, fun fact.
Okay. So, we're at a zoo right now, right? Okay.
Yeah, we are. That's a fact.
And in movies at zoos, the animals usually break out. The animals are very well contained here.
Well, yes, but...
Like a massive, that's never happened, a massive breakout with every animal.
So you're talking about the movie Madagascar.
Actually,
So in the movie Madagascar, penguins escape from the zoo, correct? And so that demonstrates kind of like their incredible cognitive abilities. And it's just us who have a very anthropocentric cognitive bias that cannot see like the reality that lies behind.
I don't know why I keep hanging out with you. We cut to a family dinner. We see it's generations of a family. It's like a holiday dinner, a Thanksgiving dinner. There's the grandfather at the head of the table, and then we pan around the table and we see the different family members. There's the matron of the family, the matriarch of the family, and she's very stern and strong. We see on the other side, we see the patriarch of the family. He's very stern and strong. Everyone's very stern and strong. It's a very stern and strong family. The grandfather raises a glass to toast to address everyone. Thank you, my wonderful, strong family, for getting together for the holidays. I just wanted to let you know that I've decided to give everything to the dog. I will be departing this earth on my spaceship, which, as you know, I've been crafting for years and years and years. Leaving behind this deathly, disgusting planet that we call Earth, filled with weaker people than us. And I wish for you to fend for yourselves for the first time in your lives. Cheers. What did you think of my speech, son? We get to a close-up on the son as he deliberates this. Did you not think it was well-intentioned?
Well, I thought the words were well placed together.
We come back to
But, I'm not sure if I wholeheartedly agree with the main content of the speech. It was a good speech, undeniable. Cheers to that.
Cheers to that. A good speech. Cheers to that.
To good speech. Though the money aspect, bit unsettling.
Yes, my husband and I would agree on this point.
Yes, we would agree. Cheers to agreement.
Cheers to agreement. It's unsettling to think that we're all alone now, that we have nothing to help us.
Yes, just a little bit of help could go a long way.
What a finely made point. Cheers to a finely made
Cheers
point.
to a finely made point. Dad, what would be your counter-argument to that?
Well, I think, as I've addressed everyone, that I've provided for everyone for long enough. And however much I have provided to you, I have not given enough to the dog. Therefore, as per my finely crafted opening statement, I will be leaving everything to the dog. We cut further down the table and we see just like the kids at the end, just like. We cut back. Cheers to another Thanksgiving.
Should I take some?
Well, you gotta get some.
I've got it.
You gotta get some.
Not really. I mean, okay, we did the bus trip to here, bunch of old folks, garage sale. I don't have to get something. It's not in the rules, huh? That I have to get something. I might as well, if it's a fair price.
Okay. I just don't want you causing no more disturbance. Get something that'll make you happy, James. How about that? We cut back to that strip mall where we see the Millennial Best Buy, and we pan past the Millennial Best Buy further down, and we see a guy walking with a sort of like 70s outfit, like he's in an R&B disco band, and he turns and he walks moonwalks right into a barber shop. The door opens. He enters the barber shop. Hey, Jimmy.
Hey, what's up, man?
Welcome to 70s Barber Shop.
Well, it's great to be here. It's so cool.
Yeah. We're gonna give you the haircut that you had when you were just a little boy.
Yeah, give me the full thing.
All right.
I love it. Earth, Wind, and Fire, huh?
September. We cut over to the corner where we see it's an 8-track player that's spinning with the cassette inside. We cut outside of the barber shop to the parking lot where.
In the parking lot, we see a couple of penguins.
Just. Nobody knows.
I think nobody cares. You know? Concrete is hot, though.
We cut to a high-angle shot of these two penguins walking, and we realize that it's black and white, and then it's sort of like fuzzy and digitalized. And then if we pull back from this image, and we realize we're looking again at this panel of screens. We're back in this control room with the two security guards. Holy shit.
Look at those penguins go!
I'll be
there!
Couple of escaped penguins in a strip mall.
Oh, we are not! Like, there's no policies against us acting against animal in law infringement.
We cut from there to a courtroom where we see a very strong lawyer standing over the witness panel where we see the security guard just kind of shivering. And he's like, "What do you mean? I gave a perfectly logical argument."
Your argument was tainted with emotion and not appropriate for a court of law. You defended yourself in a manner that is not appropriate for us. So I will cheer to that.
That's the judge. Well, I sustain the lawyer's speech, and I will also cheers to that. The defendant or the defense attorney. Well, I cannot doubt that it was a very good argument that was given. Therefore, I will also cheers to that.
We come to the sheriff that says, like, "All glasses rise!"
That's a close-up of all the glasses clinking together, clinking, the champagne bubbles up everywhere. And we see the title is The Olden Times of Agreement. And we come back to the flea market. Well, you know what? It's on me, James.
Really?
And then we cut to a close-up of their hands.
Well,
going for a handshake.
I'll be damned, Robert. I'll be damned.
And then we see the end as it freeze frame.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the end of our first half of our show. So we're going to take a quick break, about 10 minutes or so. So get a drink at the bar, go have a cigarette, go to the bathroom, do whatever we got to do. We'll be back with our interview with our Skype expert.
Thank you. Back. We're very tired, but that was a fun first half. Now, are you gonna do that? Okay. So now we're going to go to the part of the show where we interview tonight's Skype expert. And tonight's Skype expert is a very interesting person because it's like rarely that we can talk to somebody who's an expert in a form and
Let alone a part of the group that originated the forum,
yeah, so
which was the Family. The Family originated the movie forum. They were a group in Chicago at I.O. Studied under Del Close and worked very heavily with them. They also pioneered the deconstruction.
Yeah.
And probably a lot of people you recognize in there. Miles Straub, who was our first guest.
So this is our second family member.
Yes. And so then there's Neil Flynn, an actor you might recognize from Scrubs in the middle. There's Ali Farnakian, who founded the People's Improv Theater in New York. There's Adam McKay, who's an Oscar-winning director. And then there's Ian Roberts, one of the founders of UCB, as well as Matt Besser, who's our Skype guest today. So yeah, he's one of the 4 co-founders of Upright Citizens Brigade.
Yeah, both the improv and sketch group and the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater that has a center in New York and in LA right now, with two theaters on each place. Actually, now it's transitioning from 2 theaters to 2 theaters, but in a different place. Completely an important thing.
And also wasting time.
Yeah.
The Improv for Humans podcast, which is a great improv podcast. Anyone listens to it, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, in which he, like, if you want to listen to it, he has recently done a couple of movies, audio movies. So yeah, so this is the moment. This is a moment where we pray to the God of technology to allow us to connect completely across the Atlantic Ocean. Half across would be somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. That would work.
Twist you around here so that you're looking better angle. Welcome to Berlin.
There I am. Hi, everybody.
Can you hear us okay?
I think so, yeah.
Cool. I'm just going to turn your volume up.
Just 1 second. Have you been in Berlin before? I mean before because.
Well, my ancestry is from there, so it's good to be back, I guess.
Okay.
Cool. So yeah, so we've been like kind of introducing a bit the movie form, but I think it's a good point like having you now here and just asking you like to explain to all of us like, well, how would you describe the movie form?
Wow, that's a big question. Well, I'll say this. We, at the UCB in my early days at Improv Olympic, we don't really do what we call narrative improv, where the point of doing the improv is to create a story. We don't really do that. We more do improv that's improvising a sketch than a story, something that you feel could be, you know, on Saturday Night Live more than be like a play, you know what I mean? So when we would do the Heralds, every scene is more like improvising a sketch. So when Del Close worked with the movie form with us, we had never done anything that had narrative structure. But it took us a while to really get how to do the form, because I think at first all we were doing was trying to parody genres and make fun of them, rather than, as we eventually realized, we needed to embrace them and use what was best of every genre to get from scene to scene, and within every scene find the game of the scene. I don't know if that's language you guys use in your improv, but to find the game of the scene in every scene and not worry about the story of the movie, more about finding the game of every scene in the movie, because we weren't interested in creating a story that was so interesting. Like, we were more interested in using tropes and archetypes from movies we'd seen before and embrace what we loved most about the genre rather than create something new within the genre, if that makes sense. And I think the time we had our biggest epiphany, we were doing a baseball movie. And everything we'd done up till that point, Del thought we were acting silly and childish and not being funny and not being as good as the thing we were making fun of, really. And he said, this time try putting the genre up on a pedestal, like pay respect to the genre and do the best you can, embracing and realizing that movie genre on stage. And don't worry about being funny, just try to do it the best you can. And once we did that, and we did it the best we can, and I don't know how much UCB language you guys use in your improv, but we call the start of a scene to creating a base reality. So if that's the same thing in the movie form, you create a base reality, so that's just as real as possible. There's nothing unusual yet. It's the same kind of movie archetype scene you've seen before. It's nothing new. Everything's real. So when something does unusual rear its head, you know to focus on it and make it the game of the scene. And I think the problem before we realized that was everyone was trying to be funny within the genre, just like doing their own thing, and more making fun of the movie rather than using the movie to find the game. Does that make sense?
Yeah. At what point, when you guys were working on this, was it still just playing the genre, or was it always from the bat recreating the actual entire cinematic look with the different shots and filmmaking techniques? Was that part of the original conception, or was it just movie genre play at first?
Oh, all the physical stuff, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, in fact, that was the easiest, and that was probably the stuff we were having the most fun with right away. It's just not as difficult to figure out, right? So yeah, we were doing that right away to probably our detriment. We were doing so much of that kind of stuff and having so much fun with that part of the form that we weren't being smart about the rest of the form.
Another thing that comes
Does that
up
make
now,
sense?
yeah, that makes total sense. We've been like training now to try to represent as best we can as an experiment, a movie form to the audience. So how much, one question that comes up a lot, is so how much attention do you pay to the genre as opposed to trying to figure out exactly what movie you're doing or what movie you're trying to represent?
Yeah, that's probably the trickiest thing, is establishing that genre as soon as possible. And we've done the movie form on my podcasts twice in like the last 4 weeks, I think. And out of the 4 times we did it, I'd say 2 of the times I'm not sure we ever found a genre really. So I think that was to the detriment of the form. But yeah, sometimes if you don't find a firm genre, you just end up doing kind of a silly story, and you don't have a structure to rely on because you don't know what genre you're in. So I do recommend when you're doing the first 3 scenes and you're setting up everything, you're really cluing in your mates to what that genre is. And supposedly, when you give the title of the movie, you're supposed to be really cementing that in. You're really supposed to be saying a title that really is indicative of whatever genre you want to go after. And you may not know it. You don't have to know it right away. And sometimes you're narrowing it down. For instance, you can know you're in a war genre, but there's so many different kinds of war genres. So as you go through the 3 scenes, how are you going to narrow it down and give more specifics that let you know, oh, this is the kind of war movie that was actually shot, in the 40s while the war going on. So that'll be that kind of war movie rather than, something Christopher Nolan just made about your country.
And then, so I guess, because a couple of people here may have listened to some of the more recent Improv for Humans ones with the movie, but in the most recent one, you had this one movie that was a serial killer movie. But each character had their own specific quirks and games. How do those have to be tied to the narrative at all, or can they be anything, and then that's what makes those games so funny, is that they kind of fit, they don't fit, rather, into a narrative. Like, for example, the serial killer that you played had this obsession with Nixon, President Richard Nixon, and that's not referencing a specific movie, I think, but that was just a fun game.
The game that that's the thing, the game I don't think has to have to do, it definitely doesn't have to move the story along, like it would in a real movie. It's more that you do the real movie up until a point, and then you stop the movie, or stop worrying about progressing the movie, and at that point, you're just worried about heightening and exploring the game of that unusual thing. I actually don't even remember the specific game you're talking about, but once you focus on something, no, you're no longer thinking about. Don't worry about moving the story along at that point. Just have fun with the game. But in our UCB improv, we like to really focus on one game as much as possible, and there can be side games, and in the movie form, you're having things return. So I can have my character's side game going, but still help the main game of the scene, if that makes sense. Let me say it in a different way. In a Herald, every scene has one game. There should not be multiple games going on, because those characters have only been in that one scene, unless we're in the final scene at the end of the Herald where everything gets tied up. But you know what I'm saying. At the scenes up until then, there's no reason to have a character that has some other game within the scene. There's no reason to have two games going on. But in a movie, you have characters that continue through the whole narrative. So yeah, those characters can have a game that they're playing, but they have to realize that every scene is going to have its own game that the character has to focus on. So I can be doing my character game, but not to the detriment of the main game of that scene, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You said a bit about how you started doing this movie as opposite in a way to what you were doing in the Herald. I wonder if you could give us a bit of historical background about how all these different forms were created, back in the 90s, I guess. When you were guys doing the family, all the deconstruction, then the movie, where did those forms come from?
Well, the one-word answer is Dell, but when we first started, everyone was doing the Herald, and we did some kind of some short form stuff in between Heralds, but there weren't multiple forms really. And our group, the family, before we were directed by Dell, we got good at doing the Herald, and then we got to the point where we got a little bored with or confident with it, to where we started experimenting with it, and we did something called the Spineless Herald, where it would necessarily come back to the beats as structured, and we would use tag outs to go really far in heightening, and it really hadn't been done before in Herald's Herald structure. Dell saw that, and he liked it. He liked what we were doing, and he had experimented with the movie form before us, and it had kind of failed. He hadn't really cracked the code on it. So he had that form, and I think my memory is correct. The deconstruction was the third form he had also experimented with, and he hadn't been directing at that point, and he kind of came out of retirement to direct it. So it was a real thrill to work with them outside of class and know that he, respected us enough to work with him. At first, it was we weren't good, and the first rehearsal in particular, I remember, was just embarrassing. We thought he was going to quit on us right away because we were so bad. But we eventually got it, and I'll never forget the day we figured out the movie. That was, I'll just never forget it. It was one of those epiphany moments of of us all getting it, going, oh, I get it, we get it, we finally get it, and thinking we didn't fail him, and him thinking this form can work. So it was It was like an experiment in the lab. It was really cool.
Are there talking about
Just-
experiments, like sometimes, like some experiments are complete failures. Are there any like forms that we have completely no idea about because like they never worked out?
Well, at a certain point, I'd say forms are kind of a dime a dozen too. Like I think the Herald is the best form, and that's why we still do it. We make sure all our beginning students do it. I think it's one of the most it's weird because it's possibly one of the most complicated and difficult forms to pull off in a really great way. Yet we make our beginning students do it. But I think we do that because we feel if you can pull off a Herald and really understand taking a game through 3 beats of a Herald, that you can do any form. So I think rather than start like the form I do, and I'll probably do tonight, ASCAT is our easiest form. It doesn't take any rehearsal, and so it's weird the most veteran people do the easiest forms. But yeah. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but yeah. Before we did the movie and all that stuff, I guess I'm focusing on the story part. Like I think there's a lot of improv schools that actually do narrative improv and do attempt to make interesting stories in their improv, and that's something we never focused on. And when we started doing the movie, we did start trying to do that until we realized, no, we shouldn't be trying to make an interesting movie plot. That's ridiculous to think we can improvise in a half hour something worthy of being a real movie. Like that'd be an insult to real movie writers.
Could you describe the movie opening, the way you perceive the opening?
Perceive the opening of the movie?
Yeah. Well, how would you describe the opening?
Well, I guess pointers that I'd give, and I would say I'd give my own show, Improv for Humans, because I don't think this. I think it's important when you're setting up scenes to never let the energy die. Never let anyone kind of run out of breath when they're describing a scene. So we always made sure to almost step on each other's toes on purpose when describing. Like when someone's describing something, you kind of like get the energy of what they're saying and you join in, you almost finish their sentence. So, you know, the guy says, and we go over to the table and there's a smoking gun, and my partner goes, on the table is the smoking gun and next to it is a cigarette, blah, 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 blah. So we never let we don't let someone finish their description. There's a pause, and then another person picks up their description, right? Why is that good? Because it keeps you really focused in on finding the genre together rather than getting in your own head like, I can't wait to say my idea. You're finishing that person's idea to your idea versus I'm going to let him finish my idea and then give my idea, if that makes sense. I think that I'm trying to think what else I would say about it. So when you're setting up the 3 scenes, the way we do it is you don't really do any dialogue or very little dialogue before you do the title. Of course, on my podcast, we did do dialogues. It's a little different because you're hearing it, not seeing it. So I tweaked that a little bit for my podcast. But what else is there to say? Like I was saying earlier, the important thing is letting your details hone in what the genre is. Are you guys doing the movie with 2 people?
No, we're not. We're gonna
How
have
many
a group
people are in your
do-
cast?
Yeah, we're gonna have a cast after this, but we did just do a deconstruction, which is what Nacho and I usually perform, but we added some of the cinematic elements just for sort of the fun of it, which was really
I think for the full movie we're like 7 people.
7 people for the cast.
Yeah, that's good. I would say always have at least 6 people. We did it on my podcast with 5 the other day, and I think it's a little difficult. Like it's good to have at least 2 people per scene in the opening 3 scenes. Just makes it easier because you lose track when everyone has to play multiple characters and you're playing up a character. Like if I have to play a character talking to myself, as amusing as that might be, I for the sake of the form, I'd rather not do it. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else I'd say about the opening. I always found making the title difficult. I'm just not good at that. But if there's, it's almost like people have, like a basketball team, people have different, or like any team, people have different skills. So it's like once you settle into a groove with your ensemble, I think you'll find that some people are better at describing, some people are better at playing characters, some people are better at nailing down what the genre is. Some people are the best at hearing everything and knowing the perfect title that defines it for everybody. Not only for your group, but for the audience too, so that they know how to get on board. I don't know. I can't think of anything else to say about the opening.
Talking about the opening, what happens before the opening is that you ask the audience for a suggestion. And in general, we've seen that you guys ask for like a song lyric. Would you care to comment about why you have that specific ask for the audience?
Yeah, I'm not even sure that I do remember why. I mean, I remember that I think it was Dell's idea to use a line of poetry, actually. And I think we eventually let Dell know not many people know enough beyond something from Shakespeare. So it became song lyrics, which, you know, that's poetry that you sing. It's getting a word, and it's hopefully setting up something that's a little descriptive, that inspires. I find it usually does make me think of something. It makes me think of some genre right away where a single word probably wouldn't. It's more likely that a descriptive sentence would.
So I think now would be a good time if there's anyone in the audience that has a question for Matt. We got one right here. Chris.
Hi. I want to go back to the question that came up earlier about failed forms, because I'd heard some stories, and I was wondering if you could tell us about the form the horror at all. Anything about that?
Okay, I was actually going to bring that up. Yeah, I don't think it was. I think it's actually a success in a way and a failure in another way. But did Miles tell you guys about that? That sounds like that would have come from another family member. But yeah, what's that?
I heard about it from Miles. Yeah.
Yeah, we had this form called the horror, and Dell's whole thing was there's things in society that were desensitized, things that happen so much that eventually it just becomes white noise, and you don't react to it like you probably should. You know what I mean? Like terrorism or people getting shots in the street of Chicago, or just all sorts of awful things that the more it happens, the more we get used to it, the more we're sensitized to it, the less we have empathy for each other. You know what I mean? So, and especially his point was just go through go through the newspaper and don't look at the articles on the front page, look at the articles in the middle of the paper and all these awful articles that no one cares about. So his thing was, let's do a form that's not comedic at all, and look for the absolute most horrifying story in the newspaper that day. It was, I forget how we got that. I guess one member of the team would find it, like, go read the paper, whatever the most awful story is, and then we'd read that story, and our job was to embody the story as best we could. And it didn't necessarily mean repeating the narrative of the story. It just meant just trying to empathize with what was truly horrible about the story and try to show that scenically, if that makes sense. But it was awful stuff, like kid left in back of car, drowned in Lake Michigan, stuff like that. And So it was successful in that I think we did it kind of taught us to act. Like a lot of us had never done real acting before, serious acting for sure. And the way Del made us do it, you know, even if we were even slightly funny, he would say, stop, do it over, this isn't time to be funny, really try to embrace this, blah, blah, blah. So the problem is it would kind of ruin the show that it was in. Like we would do the movie form and bring the house down and have a great time, and then we bring this horror thing out. It was only like a 15-minute form, but it would ruin the vibe of the show, and Neil Flynn in particular was like, let's not do this. This is But there's plenty of forms that fail because they're too complicated. Like I've had some forms that an idea, it's not worth the complications, you know? And that's why I said forms are kind of a dime a dozen. Like ultimately you need to come up with a form, the way we do improv, that services finding the game or just inspires, you know, gameplay. I don't want to have so many elements that by the time you get the actual scenes, it's hard to do scene work. So that to me are the forms that fail, I guess.
Any other questions?
Noah.
Hi. We've invoked Del's name a lot tonight, and I'm wondering if, because you work so closely with him, maybe for the students here or some people who don't even know who Del is, if you could tell us a little bit about Del Close and why he was so important for improv.
That's like asking a swimming teacher to describe how oxygen's important to swimming. I don't know. I would say you need to go look that up and read about him a lot. It's like, tell these Christians why Jesus is so important to Christians. I don't know. I feel like he's the guy, I would assume you already know this, but I feel he's the guy that truly focused, I know. He's the guy who truly focused on making improvisation more than a work tool for sketch. And it was his passion, and there were many years where his contemporaries didn't agree with him. And there were many years where it wasn't happening. And even the stuff that people say was improv or say was like what we're doing now is so different than what we're doing now that there were some contemporaries of him that after he died that I'd have discussions with. And some of them were kind of bitter about Del. They were like, we invented the Herald too. And when I would ask them about the Herald that they invented that they were talking about, it sounded like performance art to me. It didn't sound like a way to make comedy, which is fine. There's a place for performance art too, and especially in the 60s when this all started. But I wouldn't want to see that at an improv show, what they were describing. And I think he took it to the level it is now, where it could be a comedic art form. And it was difficult. It wasn't easy. And things like the Herald and the movie and the deconstruction, there's a method to them. There's a real technique. And if you're an improviser, you get it. If you're an audience member, you may not get, especially a form like the movie, you may not get there's any technique going on. You may just think, oh, they just took a suggestion. They're just going to parody a movie for a half hour. But there's a lot of, as you guys know, methodology behind all this. And he's the one that bothered to find it. Because I think most of his contemporaries were more, I don't know. I don't respect the improv they were doing nearly as much. I respect the fact that they started improv and that they were the forefathers, but Del, without question, just took it to another level that they didn't get to.
Was there maybe one last question? Anyone have a final question? Anybody? Okay, it's not. Matt, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us all this amazing.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
Say
you.
goodbye to me.
Okay. So now, without further ado, Nacho, why don't you introduce our cast
Yes.
for our movie?
We have here Andrea, Raquel, Reynaldo, Kieran, Sango.
I think that's it.
That's it. I was just worried for you somebody. It's us, right?
Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to do an improvised movie for you. All we need to get started is a song lyric. Any song lyric comes to mind.
A long time ago came a man on a track, walking 30 miles with a sack on his back.
Can you say it one more time?
A long time ago came a man on a track, walking 30 miles with a sack on his back.
Great. Thank you very much.
We open on Santa's workshop. The elves are making toys ferociously, each building a beautiful wooden toy for the kids.
We
one
see
by one.
wooden horses, we see wooden penguins, we see all the different animals from the world just being made so that the children will enjoy them someday. We see them busy. We see we do a close-up of one of the elves and we see that there's like sweat coming off her cheeks, just running down, and she's busy as hell, just making some toys.
She's working so hard, but you can see that she loves it. She's so happy. Christmas is her favorite thing. She's got Christmas pins all over her elf outfit. Just Merry Christmas.
We ran focus into the back and see another elf looking at the happy elf with a kind of a discontent. She's working slower and feels guilty about it.
We cut to the outside of a Manhattan skyscraper. It's a big corporate building and all glass windows. And we zoom into one window and there is a boardroom. And there are many people in suits around the boardroom. At the end of the table, the CEO is furious looking because behind him we see a graph that says that profits are down in toy sales all over America and the world, in fact. And they each look super worried about the prospect.
We see that they are all worried, but at the same time, below their suits, we see like little toys coming out. There are these cheery corporate people that are very gloom about the prospects, the financial prospects of the company. And then we cut to a suburban home, like a very beautiful place, just a picket white fence, a little dog just running around in the garden.
Two dogs!
Two dogs.
In the garden. A golden retriever and a cocker spaniel.
You see the front door opens and we see a little girl step out from the front door and she's looking up and she's noticing that there's no snow. It's not a white Christmas.
And she has a t-shirt that says, "Do it yourself." And as she gets out of the school, we see that we turn around and see that in her backpack there are loads of tools, a saw, and because it's a transparent backpack.
Yeah, we can see all the tools. We can see that she has different things with different colored glitter in her backpack. We see that she has a saw, a hammer, nails, like a bunch of things that she could use to make her own do-it-yourself projects. We see she has very long, beautiful hair.
And below her hair we now see that she has these stick-in earphones, Bluetooth earphones, and we slowly start to hear that she's hearing a podcast on...
And we tilt on toy making, and we tilt upwards toward the sky, and the title comes out in the sky, and it says Santa's newest elf. We cut back to Santa's workshop.
Ho, 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 little elfies!
We were working, Santa.
Yeah, I can see you're working, but it's great. And I can see the progress going on, all these little toys in here.
We cut to really close to one of the newest toys that is supposedly the newest invention. Come back to the wine shop.
I really think the kids are gonna love those intertwinkled hands toy. I think it's gonna be a great addition to our Christmas giving.
Are you sure, Santa?
Well,
It's just that I don't get it. What do you?
Yeah.
Close up of Santa.
what do you mean you don't get it?
Cut to the wine.
Well, we may look like children because we're adults, but we've been making toys for 40 years, and this is not a toy. It's ceramic hands.
That move in a weird way. It's nothing really that the children can play with.
What was your inspiration for designing it, Santa?
Well,
We cut to the dream that Santa had. In the middle of the snow, we see small hands crawling out of the snow, and Santa running away from them in slow motion. As we turn around and go to a close up of Santa's, and the hands crawling up his back, and take him down to the ground and into the snow.
Cut back to the factory. Yeah, what was it?
Wait, so you had a nightmare, and you thought that would be good inspiration for a toy?
well, I can't differentiate between nightmare and dream. It's the same thing for me.
Really? How do you feel when you wake up from one of these dream nightmares?
Great. Inspired, I would say. Inspired.
We cut to the suburban home and we zoom past the home into the garage where the little girl is working.
Honey,
Oh my!
what is this new invention?
Oh, it's a new toy.
Looks gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a combination of a doll and army soldier that can also work as a drone. So it's
Wow,
good for all genders and all ages.
That is so right smack dab in the middle of the market right now.
I mean,
You're such a. I'm so happy to be able to give you all this work area and all the tools that you need to follow your inspiration.
Mom, you're so supportive of my dreams, but I just don't know what to do with these toys.
Cut to the close-up of the little girl.
What I'm supposed to do with these toys? I mean, should I give them to my friends, or should I?
Cut to the disappointed face of the mother.
Or should I give them to you to play with? I mean,
Cut to the shoe shop.
all ages, really. And I don't know what to do with them. I mean, I don't have any marketing skills or anything like
What I
that.
always told you, Sarah, just follow your heart. Bring joy into the world.
I know, Mom. I want to
And
follow.
what
We
my-
cut to a shot of the window of the suburban house. The corporate dude is just staring and is about to come through the door. We cut to the wine shop.
I just don't know because I wanna make things, but I'm not a capitalist at heart.
Hello.
Oh, what the hell is this? Oh, sorry,
Sorry to interrupt. My name is J.P. Windpire. As part of the Windpire review.
Did you just walk into our suburban home?
Yes, my driver, I should say, was taking me past, and I couldn't help but to hear the distinct sound of toy making. I'm in the toy business.
Oh, wow. Wow, then I probably have a lot to learn from you.
Well, I should say
We cut to the close-up of JP Whitlock.
I'm on the verge of a collapse, though. Toys aren't good these days. Toys are just plain crap. Kids don't want to buy them. My company's going down the drain. I need something new. I need a new toy.
We cut back to the white shop. I don't know, Mr. Windpipe, if...
Windpire!
Oh, sorry. I thought it was like an anatomy thing.
No, Windpire
Oh.
of the Windpire Empire.
Oh.
J.P. Windpire.
We cut to the Windpire Estate building. The wine shot of people crawling down the chute of transparent, because everything is transparent, elevators
fixing the sign from windpipe to windpipe.
We cut from there into the boardroom on the 101st floor.
Where's JP anyway? Anyone seen JP?
Well, he was supposed to be coming over here.
I don't know how to make these decisions without JP.
I saw him leave. His driver just drove him away like a bat out of hell. He came mumbling out of the building.
I know my way around this office. I'll find the conference room myself, Diane. God damn it!
I think that's JP.
That sounds like JP.
That sounds like
Well-
JP.
We cut a shot of the door just slamming open.
I'm here.
Come to
We
what?
cut to the reverse and we see the surprise.
We go back to the wide shot. I'm here.
JP, good to see you.
Now look,
Hey, JP,
I had to crawl over the conference table.
yeah.
What's that in your pocket?
Well, this is a new toy.
What?
While my driver was taking me on my leisurely afternoon napping drive through the suburbs of this great city,
That's a great way to sleep.
I agree.
Like a baby.
Like a shark always in motion.
Yeah.
Like a baby shark.
Like a migrating seagull.
Exactly. And I heard as we offed here the sound of toy making.
The sound of toy making.
You have an ear for a toy making, sir.
We run a toy empire, damn it, Charles! God damn it, Charles!
God damn it, Charles!
Charles.
You're getting But here we have it. This is some kind of a drone that's gender neutral and appeals to both boys and girls with an instinct to kill.
Just like a traveling shark.
Just like us.
Or a seagull.
Or a migrating seagull.
seagull.
Now,
Looks awfully dangerous, sir.
it's perfectly
Shut up, Charles!
Shut up, Charles! God damn it,
We
Charles!
got a close-up of the toy as it becomes airborne all of a sudden. And zooms around the room.
Charles, calm down, calm down.
Cut to the wide.
Hey, but how do we know it works without testing it out?
Charles, you're embarrassing.
Charles! God damn it, Charles!
We cut to a close-up of the intercom. Mr. Vampire, this is usually the part of the meeting where you decided to fire someone. Who should I let human resources know is being fired?
Diane?
We see a path of all of the people looking at Charles.
We cut to a close-up of a remote control and we see a picture of Charles appear on the star photo. Hey, come on.
God damn it, Charles!
We cut to outside the building. We see the whole building, and we see Charles through the window and bounce off the thing that's over the door.
It's a trampoline because it's a toy shop. So and then he lands on his feet.
And we cut to a close-up wide shot of him.
And as we see the right of him, a box with a plan falls on his head.
We come back to the conference room. Now look, it saddens me when we have to get rid of one of the people in the company, Charles particularly so.
TJP.
But this is a very special toy that's flying around this room right now. And as we all know, Santa's real. And he cannot get his hands on it, okay? This is going to be a Windpire toy, not a Santa toy.
We cut to Santa's workshop. Santa is having a meeting very similarly structured to the one.
Okay, everybody! Okay, the weird hand toys not seem to be working. We need ideas quick!
I just don't know.
God damn it, Charles!
Carlos! Carlos! Stop that!
We cut sent to the South Pole this time.
Ah, yes. That is time for extradition to the South Pole. I don't
Cut to
know.
a pan! Of everyone looking at Charles. Cuddles?
We cut to a shot of the Earth. As the person shoots all the way over the equator. And lands.
We cut to a picture of Carl Cuddles?
Landing on
Landing on the
Antarctica.
South Pole. A box with a plant on it, and it drops on his head. Go!
We come back to the Santa North Pole conference room.
Okay, so listen to me. Yes. That's very polite. That's what a good elf does.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I think we need some opposition research.
Yes. Very smart. Okay, we need to check out what the toy makers are doing in Earth land.
Well, we
Which
have.
we are part of, but we're distant because we're at the North Pole.
As they say,
Some idiot went live on Facebook. Oh, sorry.
we suddenly cut over to the corner of the room where we see like a telegraph machine. It starts spitting out paper rolls, and we see cut to a close up of the papers come up, and it's just names of children. It says naughty, 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 naughty,
And it
naughty.
slows down and goes to a name that says good.
Good. One is one good. And then we cut from there to a mall where we see kids running wild around the mall. They're all holding on. They're chanting drone, 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 drone. And we zoom past the kids to the front of the Wimpire toy store where we see JP Wimpire standing. Yes.
Yes. Behind him, we see his driver eating a sandwich.
Yes. Yes. Philippe. This man is working out precisely.
Close on Philippe.
Yes,
He's
yes.
played by Johnny Depp.
Yes, Mr. Empire.
Come back to Empire.
Yes, Philippe. Soon these kids will all have drones. There will be a drone in every house. And Santa will have no more toys to make.
Come to the suburban home. It's night outside. We slowly pan into one of the windows, and we see that the mother's telling the daughter a story, a lesson on capitalism and what she did wrong with her toys.
So, dear, while we did get to pay the mortgage of our house, I've been thinking about it, and I'm a little bit worried that maybe kids aren't receiving the toy that you made in the same fashion that you made it.
How so, Mommy?
Well, they're using it to spy and hurt on other people. Spy on other people that
Oh.
hurt them.
I just want to make toys that make everybody happy, regardless of gender,
I know.
age,
I know, sweetie, I know.
persuasion.
I saw that your intention of making the toy was pure.
But what can we do to...
We cut to the kid's smartphone, which says, "You just got an email from Santa." Cut back to the wife.
Mom, I don't know how to tell you this, but
What's a lucid in your phone?
I don't know. Let's see. It says, "From Santa at northpole.eu."
Just up camera, we hear the jingling of bells and the sound of hooves clutching through the
White Christmas!
Cut from the bedroom to a shot of a chimney where we see just bits of dust and snow start to fall out from the chimney. And then all of a sudden, a pair of boots flop down into the chimney. And we see Santa in the chimney. And we cut back to
I'm not as young as I used to be.
Cut back to the bedroom.
Mom, I think there's an intruder in the house.
Someone in the house. I wish I were not a single mother.
Cut to an over the shoulder on Santa. Over the shoulder on Santa.
Merry not yet Christmas!
Over shoulder onto the mother and child.
What? What's happening?
Who are you?
Well, let me explain you something, beautiful little kid. You're the only good kid left in the world.
Where is this going?
Santa needs you. I need you to give back the power
Cut to a close-up on Santa as he continues to say
of
this.
toy making to the North Pole.
The camera slowly zooms in on him.
You're our last hope. You're the last hope for me, for Mrs. Klaus.
As he
For
continues to
all
say this,
the
we cut to a
elves.
close-up of the little girl as she recognizes.
You are the chosen one by the North Pole to lead this revolution of toy making against the corporate empire of JP Empire.
We smash cut to Santa and the little girl on the sleigh riding through the sky.
Blitzen! Flixen! Netflix!
We got to the home of Webfire! Webfire's home. He's sitting in his large living room next to a fire that he lit and is smoking his cigar.
We cut to a super wide shot of the Wimpire estate, and we see the Santa with the little girl and the reins just flying close to the Wimpire estate.
We cut to a super close of Woodpire's eyes as he hears something over his head.
Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way.
We cut to a close-up of his hands go for the drone remote.
All
And
the
then
way
we put out to see him using it.
Jingle bells.
Well, I know a quick fix to this. We cut to a dark room. It looks like a cave, and in it, these red lights start to light up, and the drone comes into the shadow of the moon and exits, and all of a sudden we see how it goes behind Santa. Cut to Santa and the sleigh and the girl.
We cut to a reverse shot with Santa in the sleigh, like facing the drone.
Oh, Santa!
It's a drone.
It's one of mine, but it looks somehow more evil.
We cut back to Santa
It looks-
Central. Santa Central. Yeah, I think we got some drone activity going on here. Somebody know anything about drones? Guys? Anyone?
We cut back to Santa.
They're not picking up!
They're not picking up. Okay, so
It's just you and me, Santa, now!
I feel like we're doomed. This drone looks less gender neutral than the ones
We
you
cut
know.
back to the Central. Hey, you know it's a Wednesday, Santa. It's hard to get people around on a Wednesday. Cut back to Santa and the girl.
Why is Wednesday so bad?
I don't know. It's just the middle of the week, you know. People take off like an off day, you know. That happens. Okay, it was nice meeting you. I feel like that drone is going to send us a missile.
We cut to super close on the drone and it says battery low and it starts blinking. And it suddenly drops down from the frame and we only see the sky and the moon behind it in a very cheesy shot. We cut back to Santa and the little girl.
I told him he needs to use alkaline batteries for this, otherwise they just die immediately.
Well-
He's not staying true to my original design.
And that's where he will fail. And we will succeed.
We cut to a montage of Santa and the little girl and the elves trying to create the perfect toy.
We see them in the workshop and we see the little girl handling away. Then all the elves look on in amazement at the little girl. We cut to a gym and all the elves are at the gym and the little girl is running on the treadmill in the middle. They all look on in amazement at the little girl. We cut to the cafeteria and they're all getting food and then they all look on in amazement as the little girl eats more food than anybody else. And then we cut back to a workshop and we cut to a close-up of a finished toy. It looks like the drone, but it's got the same hand design, but the hands are so beautiful. And it's like those beautiful drone with humanoid hands.
We got to a wide shot.
The hands of peace is more beautiful than I would have ever imagined.
Done.
This is one toy that will not adhere to the tenets of capitalism.
You've fused my dreams with your ingenuity.
We cut to a close-up of Santa as he continues his soliloquy.
You've made the unbelievable believable. The impossible possible. the unobtainable, attainable.
As he says this, we hear the sound, the distant sound of helicopters in.
And the white shots.
Oh no! He's coming for the
We
toy.
cut to a helicopter shot next to a helicopter, and we see hanging on the outside with like an army helmet. I'm coming, Santa!
We cut to outside the workshop as they come running out.
To the reindeers! Now! Netflix!
The point of view of a helicopter as it looks down onto them as they look up. It swoops down closer and closer until we see the helicopter land in the front of the frame. We cut to a wide shot.
We cut to a close-up on Woodfire.
Here's JP!
We cut to a
Cut
white
to
shot.
Cut to a wide on Santa.
You thought you could get away with stealing my beautiful designer of toys. And I mean, the toys are beautiful. Not any other thing, don't you dare.
I'm not beautiful.
Listen to me. You might have all the money in the world,
Cut to a close-up of Santa.
but you don't have the IP, JP.
Cut to a close-up of JP. Cut to a close-up of JP.
The what?
The IP.
Back to JP.
I don't understand.
Reverse shot.
We cut to one of the elves. Intellectual property.
We got back to Santa.
Yes, exactly what I meant. You don't have it because the little girl, she's doing
Zooms
the
up to a
right thing.
two-shot. Yes, I designed the whole thing. And I didn't like what you did with it. You used the wrong type of batteries. And now everybody's using it for fighting it. I wanted it to be used for peace and harmony.
Well, what goods are toys gonna be if the designer's hands are broken?
I can never find another pair.
We're living in a machine world, Santa, and you can't keep up with the Windfire Empire.
We see a pan throne fly into frame.
Hey, Santa,
What the hell is that?
I have an idea.
Look! That's a close-up of the hands on the face. Slow motion. Back to the wide shot.
Take that!
Okay.
That's a machine made up with love.
We cut to the video conference of Woodfire Estates. Guys? Is anybody else watching this? I resign. JP, I resign.
I think you should call a public relations firm or something.
Yeah. A lawyer, maybe.
I'm his lookalike son.
We cut to a shot of the outside of the building as we see 4 people fall from the window.
We go back to the North Pole, and we see like JP's already debilitated, and then Santa goes, ho ho ho. We cut to a super wide shot of the world, and we see JP like coming down from the world, all down to the South Pole.
And we cut to a shot of Carlos with his plant sitting out.
A friend.
We cut back to the North Pole.
Yay! We go to a montage of happy children receiving gifts in Christmas. Yes! and all rains, and we see a title card that says, "The End."
That's the end of our show.
Yeah, that's the end of our show. Thanks for everybody who was playing. Raquel, Andrea, Sandro, Steven, Bernardo, Luis for closing. Yeah, so this is the last show of the year, and it was great, and we want to thank Noah so much, and he's not here, for giving us the space to do this, and hope you guys join us next year.
Yeah, our next show is on January 21st, if you want to mark it.
And thanks everybody for coming.
Yeah. It's after 10, so if you're going to hang around, which you should because it's a bar and you can drink and it's great. Maybe if you're going to smoke a cigarette, don't smoke right up front and be loud. Go down on that corner or further down that way.
But do hang out and talk to us even though we're dead.
Hey.
Thank you everybody.